Do you want to tell
Well,
like the listeners like what you're
I,
rocking?
I do. I do want to talk about that. Thank you. First of all, no one ever wants to talk about the gear, which is the best part, right? The music is just a cool way to listen to your gear because you got to play something through the gear.
Well, our
But
our our, our followers actually they're big gearheads, so
the big
yeah.
gear has okay. So we'll do a quick. It's a multifaceted. We got the headphone setup and we got the non stereo setup. So I kind of got into this whole scene very much from the audiophile perspective. My dad was a big stereo guy. So I grew up going to like Rocky Mountain audio shows like Axpana, all the kind of hi-fi trade shows. So stereo wise, I've got a pair of Martin Logan Renaissance 15As, which are electrostatic speakers. So no cones. It is a electronically suspended membrane diaphragm that runs through two polarized sheets. So
Wow.
really kind of counterculture speaker tech, which I think they sound great. I think for the music that we all enjoy here, I think having a lot of fast treble and fast mid range is good. So Martin Renaissance 15As. At one point, they were being powered by a pair of Class A Cam 600s, 1200-watt mono blocks into 4 ohms. They were getting down to 3,000 watts into 2 ohms because the speakers have nominal impedance like 2.4 ohms on the
Yep.
speakers. Boulder 810 pre, Project 10.1 turntable, Simoco Blue Point #2 cartridge, Parasound, Halo, Phono pre-stage, and a Luxman DA06 DAC.
So for the people out there like myself that have
Okay.
no idea what any of that means,
I'm sorry. I thought we were talking gear. No, okay, my bad. I didn't know if you said if people are into gear, like it was. We were
no,
going to
for
talk gear.
sure.
Okay,
If we're gonna dumb it down,
sure.
what's all that mean?
Sure. So really, what it is, and for me, not every company is great at every part of the stereo experience, right? So the people that make your speakers, maybe they don't make good amplifiers.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always been a big believer in separates and kind of playing into what everyone's good at. So the big thing on the speakers is that they just have an incredible demand for amperage. You have to have really high amps to drive them, and they have to be clean because they're very resolving speakers. So you have to have high quality, low distortion amplification. So whole signal chain, very clean power. So really, what it gets you to, and the unfortunate thing about it is that it really just highlights how shitty all of your music sounds, right? Because
Wow.
everything is, everything's recorded by a bunch of fucking idiots in their basement. So no, it all sounds terrible.
Are you talking more towards like the like deathcore like bands?
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I
so
would
you could hear
say,
those imperfections.
you can. It's just everybody just brick walls the shit out of everything. They cut it off right at 16,000 kilohertz on the frequency band, and it's just a big brick walled mess, man. I mean, it sounds loud, like it's cool, but when you've got something that can resolve that detail, it makes you miss for you know all the old school stuff that was recorded direct to analog and then pressed from analog. So it's it's funny because records don't even sound that good. Like records fucking suck. Like they're the worst sounding thing. So it's a lot of time and energy just to do something that doesn't even doesn't even sound that good. Which is segueing into why I get so mad when people are like, well, what about the real fans? Who missed out? Who just want to listen to the record? I'm like, you're a fucking liar, dude. It's like just get the fucking wave from Bandcamp. Like you don't want to listen to it on vinyl on your Crosley Cruiser. Like you're a fucking liar. Like you're not going to listen to it
Wow.
anyway.
So
So
that's where you're coming from with that, because
yeah,
for the viewers listening right now, when we were originally talking, I was like, "Hey, man, like, by the way, like, I know resellers are a thing. I don't know if it's
sure.
a thing with you." And you're like, well, I think it's kind of disingenuous for you to ask me something like that because of this, and that's kind of where you're coming from with that,
It
right?
is. So it's kind of it's the weirdest kind of double-edged sword where I have to, and everyone who's watching this, and you included, like everybody knows that small label who did 100 records of a band that fucking rocks and they sell 20 and then that's it. And then they can't sell anymore and they go out of business, right? Like it happens all the time. These little labels spring up. So my whole thing was like, how do I not do that? Because I don't want records ending up in bargain bins and eBay sales and shit like that. So how do we make, artifacts? How do we make heirlooms? Something that, people will want to buy. So, you got to make them look good and you got to make them limited. I think the fear of missing out, it really drives people to show up on time and make sure they buy them. And that's my primary, that's my primary objective, right? Because I'm sure you looked, Wax Vessel is a nonprofit. So I don't have a
Right.
big slush fund of money left over in case something flops. Like it can't flop, so that's, if it flops, then I'm done. So
No,
I would rather
I've read through a bunch of like things that you talked about
sure.
with Wax Vessel. You're saying like, hey guys, like you might miss out on getting this this vinyl, but this is a fucking nonprofit. At the end of the day, like
Right.
money's,
Leave me alone.
someone's getting the vinyl and then
Right.
someone's, getting money from this. So you guys can't
It's
hate on me.
people aren't used to it because I think it's the first time in a kind of scene that's, powered by, consumerism, that someone's told them no, that you can't have something that you want, right? They don't like it. People don't like it. So I think it's a trade-off, right? If I made, and believe me, there's some mega brands out there who are like, hey man, you should press more, you'd sell them. And I'd say, yeah, you're probably right. Like I get it. If I made more, I would sell more. But if I had 1,000, then everyone would get one, and then they would no longer be scarce, and no one would care, right?
Right.
So it's a line you have to walk. And is it the perfect way to do business? Obviously not, because no one else does it this way, right? And it leaves a lot of money on the table. So is it the
So
lowest risk way to do it? Maybe.
yeah. Yeah, no, because I saw that you said something like you started this label because you're a big vinyl collector, and
Yeah.
you were like a huge music nerd back in the day, especially like during the MySpace era.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of these bands that like a lot of, especially like with like the MySpace deathcore group and stuff like
Sure.
that. Like a lot of people care about these bands, but they never got the justice of someone creating like a vinyl for them. And you as a
Sure.
collector, you're like, I want
fucked up,
this.
right? Well, what happened, and you've stumbled again right upon it, which is so back in the day, like you kind of turn of the millennium here. So I ran Total Deathcore for a long time. So back in the Blogspot days, so it was like an illegal album leaks blog spot for a while,
Oh
and
wow.
then it went legit, and then it was hey, reach out, we'll promo your stuff. It was a slam worldwide. It was a chugcore or whatever kind of analogy you want to make. So I was doing that for a while, and then we kind of got into doing the small run CD stuff. So like Infinite Annihilator, we did Infinite Annihilator, and then it kind of, I had a guy that I worked with that changed all the passwords and stole everyone's money, and so such is life.
Wow.
So I know.
I've
So
had a
settled up
similar
for
thing happen with one of my old
everyone,
bands.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone has. So it was I was young and dumb, and that was me learning that lesson the hard way. So, and that was it. I was like, you know what, I'm going to be done. Like that was, my foray into music here. Cause I was never a band guy. I wasn't in bands. I was in a pretty small conservative, Ohio town. So we didn't have a ton of shows roll through. I mean, we did, but it was that internet culture, right? It was being in the chat boxes on the blog spots on, just talking shit and breakdown videos and, stuff like that. Like that was the, how we shared that kind of scene, that kind of internet culture, which has kind of morphed since then into metal and core collectors and stuff like that, right?
Right.
It's the same thing, I think. But I've always kind of been involved with that because I'm a big format guy. I'm a big media guy, so I've got 3,000-4,000 records, 5,000-6,000 CDs or whatever. Like I have a lot of media, and I'm waiting. Like I just keep waiting and waiting, and I'm like, man, like when is someone gonna fucking put Destroyer on vinyl or something, right?
All
Like
right.
it's been 20 years.
Yeah.
You're like, is no one really gonna do this? Like, so I'm like, fuck it, I'll just do it then. So then it kind of turned into that. I didn't want to. It's a true Batman story, right? It's the hero that we needed, but the one that didn't want to do it or whatever. Because I fucking hate it. Like it's terrible. Like everyone's a fucking dick. Like it's joyless, but they get to exist, which is fun.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So that was your first release, was Destroyer, the Dead Sleep,
Yeah.
Like Us for a Reason.
And it was, I don't want to say serendipitous, but it was never going to happen. So I was a big, Instagram vinyl guy, right? Big take photos of your records and put them on Instagram type
Yeah.
of guy. And I had an account called Wax Casket because it sounded fucking cool.
Dope.
And I was doing that. And Simon Sludge on Instagram, he's the guitarist for War from a Harlot's Mouth. He's the guitarist for Nightmare. Also pretty big, 50,000 likes on Instagram, record Instagram page. We're like, hey man, we should do some records because it's cool. Like that's what we're doing. And we're like, yeah, like let's make a label. Like let's think of a name. Let's call it, Wax Vessel. I'm like, let's call it Wax Casket. He's like, I don't like that name. I'm like, it's fair. That's my Instagram name. So it ended up as Wax Vessel, and we were going to press Ion Dissonance, their old like first album, and it never materialized. And I'm like, okay. And then that was it, the end, for years. And then Pattern Recognition Records, who was this little kind of tape label. I'm scrolling, and it turns out they got the rights to Dead Sleep Rust for a reason. They were going to do it on cassette. And I'm sitting at work at my fucking dumbass corporate job that I hate. I'm at this new job at right around this time. And I'm being crushed. Right. I'm being crushed by, the gears of, bureaucracy. I'm just being destroyed. I'm like, man, like I have to spread my wings and fly here a little bit. Like, this is fucked up. I got to do something that's fun. So I messaged them like, hey, can I do some records for this? And they're like, yeah, go for it. So that was it. That was the, kind of.
So you're at your desk job, like
literally, right,
starting up your vinyl business.
That's what I'm using, Big Boss Man to subsidize my time to run a fucking bullshit record label, right? So, I mean, it was brutal. The first couple of ones it took 4 or 5 months for them to sell out. Nobody really gave a shit, right? So, I mean, classic label story through and through. And
that wasn't the Destroyer one. That was a different band.
So that was also Destroyer. So I did 2 Destroyers.
Right.
So that was Destroyer.
Oh, so when you first put out the Dead Sleep Like Us for a Reason, it didn't sell out immediately. It was kind of slow.
4 months.
Wow.
But the thing that I did, because I'm so smart, I mean, really dumb, is I ordered that first one, and I had just paid off a credit card, and I'm like, damn, I got like 10 grand of credit limit hanging out. I'm like, what's a good use of that? I'll do 3 more all at the same time. So I just, I just ordered 3 more, and I'm like, man, I hope these fucking sell out or I'm done. So I did that first Destroyer, and then I did the Heartland, and then the second Destroyer. I ordered them all like within the first 2 days, and none of them sold out. And I was like, oh fuck! I'm like, I'm like, oh no, like this was misguided. Like I've made a mistake here. And then I did Sawtooth Grin, which everybody loves Sawtooth Grin. And then when the Sawtooth Grin crowd came over, they sold out all the rest of them, and then it was on the up and up from there.
How were you marketing these vinyls at the time? Like, were you like going in like these like the MySpace like deathcore pages like on Facebook and just like, hey guys, like I know everyone's like fans of these albums, like I'm selling them now.
So really, no. So I guess yes and no. So my goal from the start is like I don't want to do anything for these. Like I'm not going to boost any posts. I'm not going to do any ads. I'm not going to really market it too hard. I want it to just be very casual, just very, hey, these exist, please buy one. Just kind of an exchange of information. Like you can buy these now, and here's where you can buy them. So in the beginning, because I was partnered with, Pattern Recognition Records, that first one, they had like 1,000 likes on Facebook. There was some carryover, right? So those people saw those records, 500 people liked the page. And then I put out the next band with Creep Records.
So that's a Philly, right? That's a Philly spot.
Yeah.
Like my band's played there a bunch of times. I was going to ask that, like, how did you link up with Creep?
So I was talking to Eric because he runs Creep, and I wanted to do the Heartland. I wanted to do that Heartland album, and they were on Creep Records like 20 years ago. So I messaged him. I'm like, hey man, I'm like, what's the deal with this? He's like, nothing. He's like, I'm just sitting on it. I'm like, I'm not doing anything with it, but if you want to do it, like make me 100 and we'll just, so it was a co-release, like Creep Records on the jacket,
That's so dope.
So, I mean, just meeting all these like legends of industry, right? I mean, it was fun. So, I met Eric on that. A couple people from, Creep then came over like the page. So it just kind of every release I get 150 new likes. And then, they kind of tune in for the next one. So
Wow.
it's been kind of self-growing from there. I haven't had to like be too corny about it, in all honesty, which I'm happy about. It's not like, hey, like tag a friend, like which I don't want to do. So
It's like you drop it and people flock to it like
that's it.
automatically, pretty much.
So
That's dope. That's
it's
ideal.
it truly is ideal, and then you can't have it all, right? So I have to clarify, you can't have a system that operates like that but then also press 10,000 records. I
Hmm.
think it is mutually exclusive, based on my data. My sample size is small, but
Hmm.
based on the data that I have, I think I'd rather leave money on the table and make something like exclusive and collectible and cool than just commodify everything for money. I think that's cooler. So, these bands have been dead for 20 years. It's like you never had a vinyl release at all. So it's like, here is, it's kind of like a swan song, right? It's like, here is, this parting gift, like enjoy this record, you know, and then that's it.
Well, I
Which I
mean,
think,
nostalgia is one hell of a drug,
I mean,
and everyone thinks very fondly of the bands they used to listen to, and
I know.
especially like the bands that didn't get the recognition that they deserved from back in the
Yeah.
day, and they're like, what, there's a physical like version of this?
It feels like cheating, right? Because it's like every other label in the world is like taking risks and breaking new bands, and I'm like, man, it's like I already know these guys rule. Like everybody agrees that this album
Yeah.
rocks. It's like I'll just do that one, and like what? It sold out, right? Like it's easy. But to
uh
kind of oh, I'm sorry. No, I'm saying to your point, I think you 100% nailed it. I talk about this, or at least I've said this before. It We were so privileged to grow up in this time period where the internet didn't exist and then it existed.
yeah.
And the only thing these people did was they used that like kind of mass influence to make the most unlistenable music possible, right? Like you weren't geographically locked by making music for the 100 people in your town. It's like you could find the 100 weirdos all over the world and then make music for them. Like you could get more fucking extreme. So I don't think we'll ever have that again. It's like people self-producing music and, using the internet as kind of a tool for no commercial gain. Like people were trying to figure out what the internet was. And then a bunch of people all figured out it's for breakdowns. Like it turns out that's what it's for. So I don't know, man. It was a fun time back then, like being online and, going to people's, MySpace pages and checking the layouts and, I had a little bookmark and all these fucking pages. Like, I don't know. It was fun. It's different now. And as corny as it is, like, get off my lawn. Like old man fucking says things in the past were better. I don't know. It was the Wild West. It kind of hit a little different back then. So I think it's fun to kind of exalt these bands and put them back into the spotlight a little bit. Cause we're having this revival. We're having this kind of metalcore MySpace revival right now. You know, all these bands. And I think people they can generally say, oh yeah, I'm getting a lot of, see you next Tuesday influence or whatever. But like, there was more than that. There was more than just see you next Tuesday. Like there was other bands out
Yeah.
there pushing boundaries. So I think it's half and half at this point. It's half and half old dudes. And then it's the other half is like young people are like, yo, like this slams. I'm like, I know, like it rules.
How you said pushing boundaries, a lot of the bands that you're working with, they were the bands pushing the boundaries, because you could tell that
Yeah,
they were kids having fun. You know what I mean? Like everything was done
truly.
DIY, and they were just trying to
Right.
create shit that was just over the top. Like that's what their music was. Like, how can we make something sound as brutal as
Right.
possible? Like,
No
let's just
limits.
no limits. That's yeah.
Right.
And like
I think
honestly, because coming from someone that like doesn't necessarily like listen straight up to deathcore and stuff like that,
sure.
uh, I can like listen to that music and be like, oh shit, that goes hard as fuck, and like I appreciate like the music for
Right.
what it is, because it's just so over the
I,
top.
I think there's really kind of something for everyone in these old genres, because I hesitate to call it deathcore at that point. It's kind of like proto deathcore or whatever,
Right.
because all this stuff. And again, you're gonna have to stop me sometimes if I start sounding like an old man. Like I'm just gonna keep saying things like bands these days, and I don't mean it. Like there's people making good music these days, right? But deathcore is no longer the extreme genre it was. Like it's going the way of like gent or something, right? Like it's just we've got the formula down, and everyone's kind of doing the formula, which is fine. Like Spite has some good songs. Like, sure, like all right, sure, whatever you say. But back then it wasn't just intro, chorus, bridge, breakdown, chorus, outro. Like there was some finesse. People were making albums. I don't know, but
it's funny you say that because I was just in the MySpace deathcore group the other day, and someone posted something like, isn't it crazy how the deathcore bands nowadays like suck compared to the ones back in the day? Like you could literally hear someone play one note, and just from the tone of the guitar, you could tell exactly what band that was.
Right.
Now everything just sounds so triggered and like robotic, and people were even saying shit about like how like Joey Sturgis is like someone to blame for like where this whole genre.
You gotta give it to Sturgis a little bit. Like people forget about Sturgis and everyone wants to hop on Putney, but like Sturgis was, the man. Like I'm not gonna take that away from him. Like that metalcore sound, like that Ohio metalcore sound.
For sure.
Forever. We'll give that to Sturgis. So I think he did define a genre. And I will even go as far as to say define like a generation of musical taste. Like I think what he did was important, no doubt. But I think you're so absolutely right, because people figured out what sold. And that's what's tough, is that you got to make some money. And I want everyone to make money. So I'm not going to take it away from them. That's not what I'm saying, right? Everyone is entitled to get paid for their art. That's the whole point of what we're doing here. So in that regard, if people like it, you should continue to do that and make more money. But it's like you're not, on the fringe kind of pushing boundaries at that point, right? Like I think the closest thing we had was that little, kind of new metalcore revival, like all that, Villains, Youth Forever type of stuff that was happening, like all the, 2014, 2017, that was fun. Like that was kind of a cool take. If we're doing a dichotomous tree of, musical genres, the deathcore line kind of blipped off there and, it died. No one's really doing that anymore in a way that matters, I guess, like Gloom in the Corner and stuff like that. But that's kind of cheesy, but I don't know. I think that was fun. I think, OG name brand deathcore is not for me anymore, which is why I don't like people say it's a deathcore label, right? Because and I'm so sorry. I don't know if I'm just going to ramble forever. So you just have to stop me and interject at some point if you have, or I'm going to keep finding little tangents here.
I prefer guests that talk more than talk less. So keep going.
Okay. So it's for me, you've got to have, like, every label has the kind of two sides of that coin. Like you have like the screamo labels that also do emo stuff. You have the hardcore labels that also do like pop punk or, like melodic hardcore stuff. Like everybody kind of has those two things that there's enough overlap where it makes sense you can do both. So it's a lot of this, old school deathcore. So, like Dr. Acula, Black Rose Burial, I Declare War, Rose Funeral, right? But then the other half is like that really kind of noodly tech grind that it also fucking rules. It's cool grind with breakdowns. It's false grind, if you will. It's, it's power violence before power violence was cool. That doesn't take itself too seriously. I think it's true false grind, which, I think is also a lot of fun. Like that's the big takeaway. People want to, shit down my neck about a lot of stuff, man, but I'm just literally just trying to have fun. Like, what's more fun than like, you have to fight to like buy something, or like, this record has fucking razor blades pressed into it, or like this band, hasn't been around in 20 years. Like, I don't know. I think all this stuff's fun. Like, I just want to make fun music with breakdowns and stuff that's cool. Like that's the whole thing. Like that's the only thing I'm trying to do.
And you know what, to just make a note of what you're talking about right now, the artwork and the vinyls themselves are literally pieces of artwork. Like me, as someone that just is checking out the Wax Vessel Instagram, just scrolling through stuff, it's just fun just to look at the vinyls, because I'm just like, wow, these are beautiful. You know what I mean?
It's a collector label for weirdo collectors, and that's what people like to do. They like to take pictures of their records and put them on Instagram, myself included. Like,
isn't it crazy that like mainstream artists, they're not getting as cool vinyls as like these MySpace bands that you're doing vinyls for?
Dude, I'm telling you, 10 years from now, it's like, like Kendrick Lamar put out "Damn" on
a
red
black vinyl.
Right? People were like, "It's on red." You're like, right? Like it's so funny. So we are, again, I think, in true mega ironic fashion, doing ironic, overcolored records for metalheads. And believe me, I think it's ridiculous. I think it is punk in the sense that it's defining kind of a subsect of culture right now. Like, I think 10 years from now, like, we're not at peak vinyl, I don't think. I think 10 years from now, like Viral, all of these companies that are making new record machines, there's kind of an industrial boom within the record industry right now, where record pressing facilities are going to be more available, because it's something. And again, I don't want to go into a history lesson or whatever, but the reason why records have this kind of this gravitas, this kind of panache to it, is because they're so fucking expensive to make. So your band has to be good to make a record, otherwise you're not going to sell it and you're going to lose all your money, right? So there's this kind of association where if it's on vinyl, then it's good, because the barrier to entry is so high. And the barrier to entry is so high because there's only 7 record manufacturing facilities in the world, right? There's only 7. So they stopped making records, and then they never made any new record pressing machines, and everybody just uses the machines until they break and takes them for parts. And the amount of machines is finite, and they're just repairing all these old machines, and the wait times are 6 months, and they cost $6,000 to make some records. It's crazy. But I think it wasn't always that way. Like back in late 90s, records, you couldn't pay people to put out their music on a record, so it was only for punks, which is why it's like cool punk shit is on vinyl, because that's the cheapest format. It was the cassettes of the late 90s, right?
Sure.
So now it's, again, it's been gentrified. It's like, oh man, all this cool stuff's on vinyl, we should do vinyl, so we're cool. And then everything's on vinyl, and it's this whole thing. So how do we restart that over? It's the high polished presses, right? So it's the over the top, elaborate,
the splatter,
right. So how do you make it new? And I think that carving out that subsect, I think people are going to start to realize that there are companies that, the process that I use to make these records, the process that I use to make these records, it's available to a lot of labels. And what most of them do is they do 50 of this process, and they sell them for like $100 each. And people pay it because you want to have this object. It's this kind of vinyl fetishism a little bit. Like, you just want to have this nice object. And I think that now that it's been kind of introduced, I don't want to take credit for it, but it's been kind of introduced to this kind of metal kind of scene. I think we're going to see a lot more of that. I think we're going to see a lot more people catering to collectors, because those are the people buying music. No, everyone's just streaming. The only people buying music are collectors. No one's casually going to Target and buying a CD, right? No one's doing that. So I think, how do we keep physical media relevant in a digital world? It's, I think, by upping what you get for the money. I think it's upping the polish.
Right. The packaging, the whole thing. You know what I mean?
I think doing all that, I think you want to give someone a reason to buy it, because you have to, you need to, my whole goal is just to make record collectors. Like, there's so many people where it's like, I didn't really buy records, and then, I started buying Wax Vessel stuff, and I see all these other great records. So I'm just buying lots of records. Like, that's let's make more record collectors, right? Because then more bands will put out records, and bands will get paid. And because one record is a million streams. Right.
Dude, that's why I think,
right.
I think you're on the verge of something that's going to be way bigger than what it is. But to go off what you're saying,
Sure.
with having like the packaging and just trying to make sure that if you're going to buy the physical medium of the record, it's got to be worth buying. And something that you made was the Me and Him Call It Us release.
Oof. Which, okay, I'll talk about that.
I think that's the most impressive thing out of your work so far that you've done, because you've invested over $30K into this project to make it literally the whole. As a fan of the band, it's the complete package of everything they could want.
Did you get one by chance?
I didn't.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna hook you up for this podcast. So after we're done, shoot me your address. I'll make sure I'll probably get an overrun one.
Oh, but, dude.
No, I got you on that for sure. But I mean, that's in that great example, because it ties in exactly to what you're saying, in the sense that I talked to the band, and I'm like, hey, how do we make this happen? And they're like, oh, we're not going to do it. And I'm like, really? I'm like, I think we should. I think we could do something really compelling here. I think it would be cool. And they're like, well, they're like, we're tired of being told no by like label guys. I want to do all of this over the top stuff. And they always say no, because it's a cost issue.
Mhm.
Right. So I'm like, okay, well, what if it's just everything you want? We'll just do that. Like what if let's just do the whole thing. Let's do your entire collected works. We'll do a 6-sided 3 LP set. We'll do a 72 page, bound book of all of this, additional content. I mean, dude, I'm telling you, like this packaging that it's in, it's called an M pack, and they stopped making it. It's not a packaging type you can get anymore. They had to go and remake templates to like get it to make it. So like they're like, that's what we want. I'm like, okay, so it's and it sold out. It was $150 sets, and they all went in less than a half an hour.
So let's
So
talk about what comes
yeah,
with each packaging, because
sure,
it's insane. Because the fact that, me personally, I've put out compilations before with bands. Like I've had to
sure,
do the coordination with each artist that goes on the
right,
compilation, and it's a lot of work, man. And I can see the
truly.
amount of work that you put in, especially with like working a 40-hour work week and stuff like that. Like
Right.
it's
This is the hobby label, right? Like I gotta, I go to work all day and I come home. I'm like, okay, like time to do record bullshit, right? So it is a ton, and that's why I take it so personally. Some people would say that I'm the biggest fucking crybaby in the record industry, and I would say that's probably correct. I am kind of a crybaby, right? Because it's like I'm sitting here and I'm like, damn, it's like you guys all buy it, so obviously you want it. So stop giving me a fucking hard time about it,
right.
Like just oh, thank you. So I mean that me and him set, man, that was literally a year. Like that was one of the first 3 that I like signed up, at the beginning of the label, and it finally kind of came to fruition here like 3 months ago. Like it's on press this weekend, so they should be in hand Monday, Tuesday. So
Amazing.
like it's finally coming together. It's been my odyssey, man. Like I'm telling you, it's it's been a big one, but there
So
was
I see that you got these songs remastered.
yeah.
Was that all your work, or did the band get them
No, so
remastered?
I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio, which, as we know, was the headquarters of all great metalcore bands. Miss May I, Devil Wears Prada. Like everyone's from fucking Ohio.
Hmm.
So I had a buddy, like my best friend in high school. His name's Zach Sebastian. He opened a studio in Cincinnati, Third Eye Studios, and he went to school and he got his degree in like audio production, and he works on like movies and shit. He's like a full time audio producer guy, right? So it's kind of just like I had a couple of these projects, and I'm like, Zach, like I need someone to, I've got their vinyl mastering guidelines from the factory. Like I need everything mastered to this standard. Can you do it? And he did a phenomenal job. Like he crushed it out. So
Fuck
then we
yeah.
started getting a little bit more in depth. I'm like, man, can you do some like, I mean, what people don't know on Me and Him Call It Us, there are, and these are like, I don't have, like the stems, like I don't have the multi tracks. So this is just, the bounces, just the audio files. He's
Is
doing
that
like,
like the MP3s?
yeah. So basically just the MP3. So like when they're at the studio, they basically export everything as the highest quality track. So that's what I try to do all the records from. I try not just to like burn a CD or something, right? Like I
Mhm.
try to get, the source audio, but it's just one file. It's basically just an MP3 file. So he's going into these files and he's doing drum hit replacements. Like if they're off time on a drum hit, he's correcting shit. Like the band's like that.
Yo.
The band's like that's been bugging me for 15 years. That cymbal, I missed a cymbal hit there. He's like, yeah, he's just like putting stuff in. It's a full remaster in the sense that volume, stereo levels, stereo position, instrumentation. It's completely redone, but it's so subtle because you don't want to change it too much. It's preserving history. I don't want it to rewrite history in that sense because there's not a lot of places you can get this content in high quality. So I don't want to say I'm not trying to make it any more noble. It's not. It's fucking grindcore, right? Like who cares? Truly, at the end of the day, it's not the Library of Alexandria, right? But I think a lot of these, on the Wax Vessel Bandcamp, all of the FLAC wave full quality downloads of these remastered tracks, like they're available for the first time in a long time. So I think it's important if you're going to do this over the top fashion vinyl, for the actual true fans, it's like, here is also the fully redone audio as well. Like, let it, download it. It's $1. It just goes to Bandcamp credits, and then you can just, enjoy it
Dude,
then.
it's
Like, by
all
all
the
means.
details. It's literally all in the details. You're nailing it, dude. I think that's amazing.
It's
And
I
and even besides the remastered songs, you also hunted down the bedroom demos for these.
Truly, there's a lot of them like that. So, if you and there's a lot of, it hasn't even really percolated out yet, but a lot of the times, in most instances, the songs that are on the record, that I say that are on the record, it's not just those. I put the demos like on the B side, So there's a lot of vinyl only content on these records. There's a lot of, all of the, because what everyone's listening to, they went to HXC MP3 and they ripped the song off of YouTube, and then they imported it in their iTunes, and they put that up as a torrent, and they ripped it, and it's been uploaded, downloaded 1,000 times. Like, it sounds like shit. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there was this one band, 2 o'clock girlfriend. I found the guy, and he's like a teacher now. I'm like, hey man, like, about that band you had. He's like, what the fuck? I was like 16. Like, what are you talking about? I'm like, yeah, like, people, like, let's do that. And he's like, man, I haven't thought about that in a while. He's like, I think I have these tracks on like an old hard drive at my mom's house, but like, it's broken. I'm like, well, get it fixed. I'm like, go get that drive repaired. Like, so it's, there's a lot that goes into it. It's not just, let's get a YouTube rip and put it on a record. Right. So that's, back to that audiophile perspective. Like, I do try to have them sound really good too. Cause I think you can, spoken as the guy with probably the most expensive single LPs on the market right now,
Mm-hmm.
like, you're out the door for, it's $40 for one record. Right. I think you get a lot for it. And I think that, if we listen to the market here, people, it resonates with people. I think there's a market for, high quality stuff. I don't think everything has to be a $12 black record. I think you can go that route. And like, if we make it as affordable and cheap as possible, we'll get people on impulse purchases, right? It's like, yeah, I might as well buy it. Or do you go the other way and make it as expensive as possible to really get the most out of it as possible and appeal to, collectors? And that's the space that I'm more interested in, I think.
I think that's the good way to go too, because it's like you're essentially turning into kind of like the blueprint of like Supreme. I feel like, you know what I mean?
Sure. I think there's, and I keep saying I think, but I think we've shown, and who knows how long the gimmick will last, right? But for now, it seems to be working okay. I think I think people respond when you give a shit, right? Because I very much give a shit. Like, I think all that what I'm doing is, very very important, and I try to, do right by all these bands. And I try to do right by all the people that are buying them. Because like, when you don't get one, yeah, it sucks, right? But when you do get one, you really have a good time. Like, people really like it when they manage to get one, and it's like, case in point, how many are for sale on Discogs right now? Two out
Yeah,
of
let's talk about that, because after
sure,
we had that conversation, I was just like, what's he talking about? There's no resellers for this? And then I
yeah,
looked on eBay, and there are some records on there that are going
sure,
for a lot of money, but like not
right,
nearly as many as I thought. Like the one
right,
Destroyer album is up to $800. That's crazy, but there's not many cases of that. Like,
right.
so if you were
That's
smart, I mean, if you're a reseller and you were smart, the
right,
best way to game the system is to try your best to buy like 5 of these
right.
like $30 records and
Well,
hope that the value goes up.
the thing is that one, I do put a cap on it. You can't buy five, like, your order
Okay,
gets canceled.
cool.
And then two, and I really don't even have. I put a cap on it, but I don't even have to ever do it because they sell out so fast that if you can get more than one, like, go for it, buddy. Like,
Sure.
give it a try. Like, try to
Right.
get one, right? So I do, though, because I think it's really this core group of people buying the records over and over again. Like, there's a
Sure.
little community around it. So if I see like one on eBay right after the release comes out, like 3 days later,
Mhm.
I see where the seller is selling from, and then I check my orders and I figure out who that person is, and then they just can't buy anything anymore.
Wow.
Like, it's like, if you're a flipper coming in, just to buy shit, just to flip it, like I can figure out who you are for the most part. And then I just cancel all your orders going forward. Cause that sucks. But I think there's a difference between that and someone who is a fan and they're just selling it, right? Like, I think there's nothing wrong with something having a high resale value because it is collectible. Like if they were showing up all the time, they wouldn't have a high resale value because they're showing up all the time. Like they go for so much. Like I implore you, buy a copy of Sawtooth Grin right now. Like see if you can, like give it a shot. Just see if you can buy one. Like you can. Like I think most of these records are in their forever homes. So, a month or two after they come out, everything kind of settles down. And then it's like, you can't buy them anymore. Like any of the first 10, like try to buy any of the first 10 Wax Vessel releases right now. Like it's really hard.
Well, I think that's awesome that you set it so that people can't buy more than however, like you make it more than two. I think that's awesome.
Because believe me, I'm a one to play, one to display type of guy too. Like when I buy records, I'll buy two. So I don't want to take that away from people. Like, but you can't buy two of the same variant. You can't buy two of the same one.
Okay.
So you can have any two copies. Sure. No doubt. Sure. Because I get it. Like it is a that type of object where maybe you don't want to play it, the one that you have, because it is a collectible, right? But there's been a couple instances where I see a record gets delivered. I have my little tracking sheet. I see everyone's getting delivered on Monday here. And then I go on fucking Mac and, oh yeah, I got a copy for sale, $400. I'm like, dude, I see who you are. Like, I'm just going to cancel your order next time.
Right.
So I do that.
Oh, wait. So do you log on to eBay to see if people already are listing the item?
Oh, yeah. I go through and it says seller is from Kissimmee, Florida. And then I go and I look and say, how many orders did I have in Kissimmee? I'm like, oh, only one? I'm like, that guy, and maybe
it's
I'm wrong.
Fuck you.
Yeah, right.
That's funny.
And I've probably canceled people's orders that don't deserve it. But you know what? And people don't like to hear it because people don't like to not be in control as consumers, right?
Yeah.
But I've got more than 200 people trying to buy them. So I don't need your money. You've lost a customer. I'm like, dude, you don't buy anything. You just get mad when you can't buy something. So yeah, fuck you. Like,
dude, I think that's hilarious. Yeah, that's hilarious that you bust these people. So wait, hold on. We're getting off track with the Me and Him Call It Us release because
right, yeah.
I still want to talk about that because all right, another thing to notice is that you got oil paint artwork done on this one. So is this done by the same artist that does the
No, so this was done by Michael Leary, who is the brother of the drummer of the guy from Pallbearer.
Wow.
So, which you might know, but hold on, I got this. Let's take a look. Well, let me flip it. I'm going to turn on the light. Oh, so there beautiful. It is, hanging in the house, So it's a big ass painting.
That's beautiful.
A little hand for scale here, So, I mean, it's pretty big, but yeah, we got a full painting commissioned here for that. So that was step one, is that we wanted to, I don't know, because I think the thing that I really like about, this label endeavor, and I think part of the reason why it is, I hate using the word successful, right? But the reason that,
it's still running, like it's
sure, it's still running, right? Is because I view myself as a little bit, of a curator, right? Like I went to school initially as I was going to be an industrial designer, right? So I did a lot of art stuff in high school and a little bit in college, and I think design is very important, and I appreciate good design. And if you can say these things without sounding like a dick, I don't know, but I like things that are well designed. So I think approaching it from that, because a lot of people, they could have just put the old artwork on everything, right? No doubt. But I think it's more intentional when you redo the artwork, and all of these are, I don't really give the bands any input on it. Like it's gotten to the point now where it's like, hey, you want to put your album out on Wax Vessel? They're like, yeah, you bet. And I'm like, cool, I'm going to do it then. Like, talk to you when it's done, and that's it. Because like I tell you, like I talk to these bands, I'm like, dude, I think we should do like a like a blood splatter. I'm like, no. I'm like, stop. Like, like it can't just be clear with red splatter. It's like you don't know the market that's going on here anymore, right?
Let's shout out your graphic designer Ben Hoagland
and
talk
Hoagland,
about him.
The man. Okay, so it purely good luck and coincidence, right? So I was on Facebook, as all great stories start, and I was scrolling, and so was the vocalist for Extortionist, who's
Okay.
a band, right? So I like them; they're a good band, and all of their art I really enjoyed. I think that you can define a lot of time periods based on the art of the releases that came out in those time periods. So you remember, like every Jet Band, it was a computer animated 3D space scene, right? Like you
Yeah,
see
yeah.
one of those, and you're like, damn, okay, like it's a single word with a plural, and it's a 3D space scene. I'm like, that's probably a slamming ass Jet Band, right? Like, so I think it's fun to kind of see these trends. And right now, the trend is these kind of skeuomorphic textures and text on the front. And I think Ben Hoagland's style is very indicative of what's cool in 2019, 2020. I
Sure.
think a lot of band like everyone on Stay Sick, right? Every band on that label has album art that looks like this, right? Like this whole kind of beat down deathcore type of stuff, very Ben Hoagland-esque. So big fan of his art, and I saw he had a pre-made for sale, and it was like really cool. So I messaged him like, "Hey man, can I buy this pre-made?" I had nothing in mind. I just thought, I'm like, this would be a cool piece of art to have for something one day. And he's like, "Oh man, it's sold." I'm like, "No worries. Maybe we'll work on it again on something else." Fast forward 6 months, right? That doesn't have anything to do with the story I'm telling right now. But fast forward 6 months, and that first Destroyer release, right? I'm like, "Hey, let me do it on vinyl." They're like, "Cool. We don't have vinyl art for it though, and this has to come out tomorrow." So I'm like, "Oh no!" Like I need to get art made in one day. So I hit up Ben. He's like the only artist I had in my fucking messenger. I'm like, "Man, can you like bust out some art in this by like tomorrow?" He's like, "Oh yeah, no doubt." In like 3 hours, he hammered it out. Like we just went back and forth for 3 hours. He crushed it. That first DD art, just an incredible job. And ever since then, I'm like, yeah, like we're just gonna do that. Like we're just gonna have Ben Hoagland do it. So it wasn't, I think it's definitely turned into its own thing where like his style is kind of, defined the label and the quality of the release, like everything. It's very,
It's very on brand at this point.
it's very on brand. So I
Did
think
he
there's definitely a
also
wax vessel.
did he make the logo for you guys too?
So that was cut. No, man, that logo was who was that? Infected, dedicated design. No, glorious glorification. So shout out glorious glorification, Darren Baldwin. So literally that logo, the teeth logo, it's like $50. Just like he's like 16.
It
I'm
came
like,
out
hey man, I
great.
need
He was a
so
16-year-old
good.
kid.
Like literally just some kid like making logos. I'm like, hey man, I need a logo. Can I have it in 2 hours? He's like, okay, cool. Like, so I gave him a photo of like the Halloween teeth.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wouldn't it be cool if it said wax vessel like on the teeth? And that's what that's what he made. So he did a good job.
Dope.
And then I'm telling you, I spent a lot of time on Facebook. So I, like in that, coalition of metal designers, like all those design groups for metal designers, I just like hang out in there and I see who's kind of like up and coming. And like, that's how I met Kai Blackwell, who does all of the layouts for the Facebook page. He does all of my logos. He does all of my formatting. He does all my mock-ups for like the records and stuff. So I try to like, just kind of, keep it in the, I wish I was better at graphic design. I wish I had like any kind of skills. I just do it
Dude,
myself, but I can't.
these people that do like the graphic design for these like bands and like kind of like the metalcore scene, they are killing it right now because
Killing
like
it.
it's almost like they're making like the merch just in general just looks like streetwear brands. It doesn't even look like band tees anymore. It just looks like
That's what I'm.
it's like you
And
would
is
buy the t-shirt just to wear
yeah,
just because you like the t-shirt and you don't even have to know the band.
and that's what I'm saying. Isn't that like so 2020? Like 10 years from now, you're gonna look back and see all of the shirts that people were putting back out with like a floating eyeball and like a box and like some font, and you're gonna go, yeah, that was a fucking 2020 shirt. Like we look back now at like the neon cartoon monsters with like, and like that's a Hot Topic shirt from fucking 2005. Like I think it's so on brand. So I want to keep everything that way. So when Wax Vessel's over, people can say, oh, that was such a 2020 thing that kind of
Yep.
went on, like that was fun. So I think Ben's a huge part of that, no doubt. So I try to use him whenever I can.
Yep. So shout out Ben. You're fucking killing it right now.
Absolutely. Shout out Ben, 100%. Ben Hoagland Art and Design is his Facebook page. And also check out Extortionist. They're back. Also check out Hilo Gloom, which is his rap project, which is also very good.
Ooh, nice.
So, yeah, he's killing it on all fronts.
Do we also want to talk about the 72-page booklet with the handwritten lyrics that are on
I
Me,
will.
Him, and Call It Us?
So we'll talk about that, and then we'll talk about my secret feature, which I haven't announced yet, but is
Okay.
my secret feature. So the packaging in itself, fantastic. It's a four insert. So imagine, if you will, like a regular gatefold record, right? So two books and it opens in the middle. But then imagine it just keeps doing that. It's just a book. So it's all bound in the center. Like the spine on this thing's like an inch thick, and it's just pages, and each page is a gatefold out of a record with a record in it, right?
Oh my
So
God.
that's yeah. So that's kind of what the packaging is like. It's insane. So within one of those spines is this big 72-page book, and you pull it out, and that was 100% Kai Blackwell at Lab 13 Media. So he is my other big guy that I use for stuff like that. So shout out Kai. That was 6 months. I mean, Aaron would, from Me and Him Call It Us, he was like kind of the point man of this. And we had a Google Drive, and every show that they played, he had a little folder of photos for. And
Nice.
like every merch design, like he's one of those digital hoarders, right?
Yeah.
That's like, I'm going to save everything we've ever done, like just in case, maybe we'll need it one day. And it turns out we did need it one day. So he was feeling, vindicated, right? So we had all this content. We're like, how are we going to whittle it down into an insert? And then it was like, fuck it. Let's just not whittle it down. Let's just do,
Let's do a full
72 pages.
discography with
Let's
a
do a
whole
full,
book.
I'm telling you, I feel like I have to do it that way though, because the whole policy is like no represses, right? And that's not even just with me. It's like, if I pressed your record, you can't press that record anymore. That's it. Like no represses, like at all. So I'm a tyrant, no doubt, because I think it protects the market. You know what I mean? So like, if you are, I mean, how big of a dick would you feel? You buy a release, and then you buy it secondhand for $500, on eBay, right? And then the band comes out and they do a big repress, right? And now, right, you feel like a dick, right?
So
So
does that mean you draft out a contract to these bands?
no, I just say, don't do that, please. And then they say, okay. Like, I'm not, I mean, I'm not going to,
Just like, don't be a dick, man.
I'm not going to be a dick. Like, that's it. It's not, no, I don't, no one, at any point, no one signs anything in the whack vessel process. Cause it's like, again, like it's dumb punk shit. Like, why do we need to make it all, all buttoned up and sign contracts and stuff? I'm like, just say you won't, and then don't do it.
I don't, to be honest, and not to throw shade at anyone, but the fact that no one's made vinyls for these bands up to this point, I don't think anyone has the capacity or the drive to actually follow through with doing a second pressing like how you're doing it, to be honest.
Maybe, right? I mean, it's a lofty thing, right? Because you're on Facebook, you see the comments, like every time a new band has a new album, they're like, do vinyl, and no one ever does it because it's expensive and it's hard, right? So I think it's as lame as it sounds, right? Like there definitely is people wouldn't care about some of these things in the way that they do if it wasn't a wax vessel thing, right? So I think the platform itself and the community around it is this kind of thing that moves records, right? So it's giving me the freedom where I can kind of do the stuff that I want. So it's like, if I'm going to do no represses, then I can do whatever I want. Because like, why not go all out? Like, if it's never going to happen again, like let's sell a $40 LP,
Sure.
So it gives you some freedom, no doubt. But with that is a lot of trust, right? Because like, I could go, if I raised the unit counts, everyone would be mad. If I repressed an album, everyone would be mad. If I used a different designer, everyone would be mad. So it's like, it kind of locks you in, but within that kind of locked in, there's some freedom within it. So I don't know.
Let's
I don't think
talk
everyone
about
should. Yeah.
let's talk about Gotta Groove Records. How'd you link up with those guys?
Sure. So
because one thing I saw, you had a picture. You play part in creating the designs of what the spatter patterns are looking on the variants of these records, and they actually take your doodles and they have like a wall.
I know. They're so funny. It is okay. Yeah. So this is like some real Nardwuar shit right here. You're doing a deep dive. Okay. Yeah. So they're from Ohio. So I'm from Ohio originally. So it was just good luck that one of like the 3 pressing plants in the United States was also in Ohio, right? So the first time I used them, it was just geography. That was it. I'm like, man, I can order these and go pick them up. And that was back, in the total deathcore days. I did Black Tongue. I did Born Hanged on vinyl.
Mhm.
So that's who I used for them. So I had a rapport, like I had a rep, and I just went back to my emails on this first one. I'm like, man, might as well use Gotta Groove again. Like as well kind of, orchestrated and regimented and kind of thought out it is current day. I was just kind of making shit up in the beginning, like I hadn't landed on what the model or what anything was going to be at the time. So, the first one, there was only one variant, right? I'm like, it was clear with a splatter. And then, I think right around Sawtooth Grin is when the format kind of solidified itself to where it was, 3 variants. So it was like 50, 50, 100. And that's because those 50 ones are really, really expensive because they're all handmade. You have to do 100 of something, machine made, cheaper to kind of offset that cost. So I can have a $25 cost.
Right.
So I really kind of see Wax Vessel in a couple of phases. So like phase 1 was kind of figuring it out, getting to that 3 variant model. And then right around February, maybe like right before COVID, I did Cloacal Kiss. And I'm like, listen, this one's going to be $30. I'm raising the price $5. And with that $5, it's going to be 2 of these like signature series, like these crazy ones. And then also everything has an insert. So again, I've gotten off track, so I apologize. But I use Gotta Groove because, geography for the first time. But then as we kind of started getting into the model here, I used them because there's no one else that you can use. No one else is doing handmaids like Gotta Groove right now. So
they just do a great job.
They just do a great job. So their head press master, Heath, I think he's a real stand-up guy, and he gets the vision, because a lot of people that kind of get this level of work done, they go and they sell them for $100 each or something. So he likes that they're, affordable, and it's for, the everyman a little bit, and he likes getting his art out there. So I think it is good for all parties involved, so I stay because they treat me really good over there for sure.
All right. So last thing before we do some plugs, for bands out there, who are just starting, but they want the novelty of a vinyl. My band, I happen to come across the company that does cut lathe vinyls. And
is it Little Elephant?
What's up?
Is it Little Elephant?
It's White Noise Records.
Okay, sure.
And they do a great job, and it's, you're not breaking the bank over it. Sure. But the only thing with the lathe cut records is that the quality of the sound isn't as good, but you still get you still get the vinyl, you still get the packaging and stuff.
Definitely.
And I was just wondering, do you think this is a good alternative for DIY bands that can't afford the big release of buying a big package of vinyls?
I do not, and I'll tell you why. You've stumbled onto something that I have a hard opinion on. Cool. That's unpopular, but I think lathe cuts are trash, and I hate lathe cuts more than anything because it's poser vinyl, right? So because they have the thing that isn't the vinyl. It's the tape. Just do a tape. You know what I mean? Like cassette labels are the arbiters of the scene, right? So they're the ones truly grinding it out, doing $5 releases, for bands that don't have any money. Like, just put a tape out. Like, just do a tape. There's a whole tape collector scene. Nobody likes lathes. Someone's going to tell you that people like lathes. No one likes lathes. Like,
do you know what's funny? So actually, I have my lathe right here.
Okay.
So this is my John right here. Heaven's sake.
I love it. Congrats. Like, that's sick.
It's beautiful. But yeah, no, to go off it, what you were just saying, no one likes fucking lathes, dude, because
no one likes lathes.
You need a special needle for it. 2, you got to set it to a special setting for it to actually play right. And right. 3, I tried looking everywhere online for a nice display case to put it in so that right. the vinyl sits off with the side with the artwork. Nothing for the size, because this is a 10-inch and there's nothing for 10 inches.
I know, it's tough. That's my even bigger pet peeve, is that people who go through all of the time to press a record and then press a 10-inch. It's like, I hate 10-inch records so fucking much. Like,
It's
for
such an
real.
awkward time
It
amount that you could use
it
too.
is. It's like, just do a single-sided 12-inch. Like, just why do a 10? You know,
Yeah.
everyone wants 12 inches. So, I mean, lathes, I get that intellectually. I think that, I mean, so the reason people don't like them is because they do sound bad. So it's not into vinyl, it's into acetate. I think it's just they don't sound that good. And they're kind of like they're like a one-off. They're like a novelty, right? So it's like you can cut like 5 or 10. I don't think you get the same level of you know, customization. Like, you know, so to be fair, who's that? So Good Junkie Records, if you're familiar with them, they're doing 2 lathes, painting the B sides and then kind of like gluing them together, so you can get like a splatter effect on it. Then, you know,
What?
so yeah, so they're doing some cool stuff with lathes. I'll give them that.
I could have gotten the splatter
Okay,
for this one, but it was
sure,
like a little bit cheaper to get the
right.
clear vinyl.
So, and again, right. So that's what I think people who are like, man, I want to have a record, but I also want to optimized for them not being expensive. It's like, that's a oxymoron. You can't have both. You can't have your cake and eat it too. You got to
Right.
spend the money and do a record, or you got to not do it and do a tape. I think that, you know, that's me anyway. But I think so. But like Little Heart Records, I mean, Little Elephant Records, I think do a really nice job. To be fair, I think Little Elephant does a nice job on lathes. I think Good Junkie does a nice job on lathes. I think as long as so the Ghost is Clear also does great lathes. I just think you just have to say it's like, this is a lathe. Like, there's people that will bill it as a record, but it's a lathe. And that's what gets me
That's
going.
bullshit. I mean, that's
bullshit.
You know, yeah. Wait, can I show you something real quick?
Okay, what do we got?
All right. I don't know if you're ready to see this.
I'm not, but I'm ready. Let's hear it.
So No Sleep Records, are you familiar?
No, I don't think so. Well, who's been on No Sleep Records? But like, who's their big act?
I don't know. Let's check
Okay,
real quick.
sure. I'd check too, but I'm in a post PC household here. I only have this fucking phone. I do everything from this phone.
Oh wow.
I don't even have a computer anymore.
Dude, I have no idea who. Hot Mulligan.
Okay, sure.
Balance and Composure.
Okay.
But so my friend's band,
Sure.
Actor Observer, they announced
Okay.
that they're putting their new single out on Lathe Record on No Sleep Records.
Okay.
And I went to, I ordered one, and I waited months for it to come in. As you know, that's, you know, you do the pre-order thing.
Such is life, right?
Finally came in, and
Don't say it.
I was so, first of all, it didn't come with any artwork, which I thought was a little strange.
Okay. Sure.
Whatever.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So here we go. See this? Looks like a normal record, right?
Sure does. Oh, it's a flexi. Okay.
Have you seen this before?
Yeah. So that's so what they've got there. It looks like they've got themselves a flexi, which is, you know, back in the day in like magazines and whatnot. So like on Banger and, you know, all those big magazines, you can get that. You can get a little flexi disc made, which is like, yes. So no, I mean, flexis are different. Flexis are cool.
For the listeners that are tuning in on Spotify or Apple Music, the vinyl is a square vinyl instead of a circle.
It is. It's a. So when we get off of this, go check Flexi Disc is what you are, and that is a legacy thing. So I am pro Flexi Disc, 100%. So Flexi Discs and tapes are cool. Records are cool. CDs are cool. I'm still pro CDs for the most part. I still buy a lot of CDs.
Me too.
Actually, you know, I'm a format guy. I love all formats, truly, except for the 10-inch record and for the lathe cut for the most part. So,
damn it. The one record I'm proud of putting out for my band, I got your disapproval.
I'm sorry. The thing that you're proud of is a pile of shit. You know, I don't know what to tell you. No, I don't. I'm just, for me, just from like a label guy perspective, like people like to throw it in my face a lot that like, oh, like, you know, no one, these just look good. No one even listens to them. Right. And I think that lathes, lathe cuts are too many compromises just to be on a physical format, is what I'll say. So I think you've thrown out convenience like a record. You've thrown out, quality like a record. You've thrown out all of these things just to have it as a physical format. But then also they don't even really sound that good. So it's really just, I mean, what is it then, right? It's just a trading card, right? Like it's a Pokemon card at that point, which is fine. But I think there should be a certain level of musicality to it. Plus for me, it makes me look like an asshole that I charge $30 for a record. You can get a lathe for $5. People are like, why not just do that? It's cheaper. Like it cheapens the whole vinyl thing that's going on right now.
Right.
But
it's the McDonald's of the fucking, it's of records.
But also
you're buying $1 meal fucking record.
But I have so many lathes, though. I do want to be clear. If it's the only thing if it's the only thing something's on, I'm buying the lathe like that,
true.
But also I buy a lot of lathes. Like that's okay.
So when you see like a band you like that finally puts the record out, but it's on a lathe, you're just like, son of a bitch. All right. Take my money, I guess.
Like, damn. I'm like, I guess I'm gonna fucking buy it, but I'm mad about it. I kind of pout a little bit. But I usually still, because for me, if you're gonna do this if you're doing a lathe, it means that the biggest factor was cost, right? That means that what you were optimizing for was cost if you're doing a lathe. Whereas, with records, you're optimizing for like coolness or form factor, I think what you're maximizing for with a lathe is cost. So I'm like, man, if they're doing that, then like, where else are they going to cut costs? Like, is the jacket going to be shitty? Like, are the center labels going to be shitty? Like, it makes me just question it. You know what I mean? Like more times than not, I get a lathe and like the packaging is also kind of lame.
Yeah. It's just like, it's like, what are we working? We're working with the cheapest card stock with the cheapest gloss.
Right. I'm like, is this whole thing going to be lame? So, I mean, again, lathes are cool if that's it. Cause then it's like, oh shit, you didn't just do nothing. Right. Which is the worst thing as media men. The worst thing is if they just do nothing. Right. Mm-hmm. So I'm pro lathe in that context, no doubt. But if it's like, hey Nick, would you rather pay $50 for a record or $5 for a lathe? I would just buy the record 10 times out of 10. But
last thing I want to talk about before we get off is the most recent release that you just did was the Duck Duck Goose.
Sure.
How did that go?
Terrible. Fucking nightmare. So
what?
Bad.
Why?
So, well, it went really well in the sense that it was a 13-second sellout or so, right? Yeah. So sold out immediately. But they're one of those bands that's a big legacy band. So everyone was mad that they didn't get one. So it was more crybabies than any other release, I think. Mm-hmm. But objectively, like they all sold out. I think that thematically, it's one of the better releases. I think all of the variants really play well together. I think the art turned out great. I think production wise, I think
the variants you had for that one's my favorite splatters that I've ever seen.
Me too. I think they turned out so insane. So everyone on Spotify, I'll hear. I mean, sorry, they look good. Take a look. I think the continuity on that set really good. I think material wise, everybody loves Duck Duck Goose. So I was really happy to get them, and I think it was great working with them. For the most, they had some quirks, right? You'll notice there was 2 jackets. There was, the main jacket and then an alt jacket. They didn't really want to go the Ben Hoagland art route. They wanted to do their own art. And that was our compromise. I'm like, I'll do 200 and you can do 100.
Oh, that was the reason why.
That was the reason why. So they're like, that art's too childish. We want to get away from the neon monster stuff. Oh. We don't identify as that band anymore. They're like, it's just not us. And I said, okay.
So but theirs was the black variant?
There was the black. So
okay.
I said, that doesn't really work for me because I'm kind of a nostalgia label and people like nostalgia. So I think we should do that. So it ended up getting, bifurcated a little bit. So I had a web version, which was 100% me. And then we had a tour version that they're going to be selling at their live shows. That was 100% them. So they did the jacket design on that and they're not sold online. So I think it keeps it separate enough where everybody's happy. So I think that part was cool that we've got like an alt. It's not even just an alt cover. It's separately printed jackets, separately printed inserts, separately printed center labels. It's two completely different art sets, right? Which I think is cool. So that was cool. But those 200 went too fast. People were really mad. So I had more crybabies than usual on Duck Duck Goose. But I think once they start coming in, I start seeing some photos and stuff. I think people are going to dig it. Like, it was a good release, but it was just hard. I take it really personally. Like, I read every comment.
Tell. Dude, I can tell. Like, you have to address like these people that are just like, why are they coming at you? It's like, bro, like, I make these, I make the rules. You didn't get one in time. Yeah. Too bad.
Too bad. I'm like, how were you able to be alive for the past 20 years without it on vinyl? But now suddenly it's the biggest issue in the world, right? Like, sorry, buddy. I don't know. It's just, it's that thing. They say in high school, right? Like, you can get, 100 compliments and then one person calls you a piece of shit. That's the one you think about all day. It is very much that,
That's the same
global scale.
Running a YouTube channel, you get the one comment out
you're putting yourself out there. Right. Yeah.
One comment out of 10 people that are like, oh my God, I love what you put out. Like, I appreciate what you're doing for the scene. Right. And there's one asshole that says, hey, you're an ignorant piece of shit. Fuck you. And you're just like, bro, right. Damn. Really?
That's the one you go to bed thinking about, right? You're like, damn, like, how did this guy get so mad? And then you want to just talk to him, be like, dude, why are you mad? Like, no, let me explain the whole thing, right?
I've searched people. I'm like, who's commenting? I'm gonna look up these people.
Who are you? Right.
I'm going to see who you are. I'm going to see what you're about. And I'm seriously debating saying, what was that comment about? It wasn't constructive criticism. It's keeping me up at night for some reason.
Right. No, you're just being a dick. Right. You get it. Like, you're putting stuff out there. We're just kind of putting ourselves out there in different ways. And I've stumbled upon the main reason why a lot of record labels aren't run by a guy that is just out there. Right. Because then you can kind of separate it. You can just, not respond to comments or just kind of,
you're the corporation
concept. It's not right. It's corporation, right? So back to double-edged swords, right? I think the upside is that when there's a face to it and I can be a bit more personable, it can be more transparent. And I think that, people appreciate that, having a label with some accountability and some oversight and some transparency that's a bit more, interactable. But on the downside, man, I'll tell you what. So I just started fucking blocking people now and add your name to the list. If you're a dick, it's like,
trigger finger, man.
You're never gonna buy.
Trigger finger.
Never gonna buy anything again.
Dude. Yeah.
Fuck you. Right. So that's all you can do. I'm telling you, man. It's people wonder why like things are the way they are. It's like, well, why doesn't my favorite band do this? Why doesn't my favorite label do this? Why does my favorite podcast do this? It's because you're a piece of shit. Like, as a fan base, all of you, you're all the worst.
Wait, I gotta bring this up because I actually found this funny and I took it personally because when we were first talking and you're like, you kind of just made me feel like I'm like, oh fuck, did I break the rules or something? I went on your website and I saw that like under Wax Bucks, it's like for all you losers that think that resellers are the reason. I was just like, oh fuck, I'm a loser. So I think it's fucking hilarious knowing you now and like understanding the whole business and stuff. Like,
it's mostly ironic, right? Because like no one who's ever called me a loser, I've never sat and had an hour-long conversation with. You know what I mean? Like, we're never like, haha, fuck you, dude, right? It's always just some guy who didn't know about Wax Vessel until today. He learned about it today, and then he went an hour after the release dropped, and he's like, what? This is sold out. This is fucked up. Fuck you, right? And it's like, that guy is like, you're a loser. Like, I have no interest in talking to you, right? But of course it's easy for me to throw around. Like, I don't think
for
you're
sure
a loser.
Right. Dude, we're cool, man.
No.
All right, so Wax Vessel, what do we got going on? What's the future of the brand? What do we have? Okay. Can you give us a little sneak peek on what's to come?
I will give you a sneak peek on what's to come. So October, we are going into what I'm calling Sasstober, and then we're going into Moshvember after that. So it's going to be kind of thematic. It's 3 releases a month with October. And for all the listeners here, so don't tell anyone. like don't share this podcast, or just don't tell your friends. So the middle release for October is in fact See You Next Tuesday. So
Fuck
it is
yeah.
there. This was a this was a tragedy, their original full length, plus that summer sampler, redone art by Chad Lenjar, who did the artwork originally. So
Wow.
it's oh dude, it's the full suite. It's gonna be fucking sick. I've been sitting on that for so long. So it's
I
you
saw
know,
that Chad was one of the other artists you originally wanted to work with besides your
so we
boy
got
Ben.
so we did get Chad. So Chad's redoing the artwork for what we are calling um, god awful Sonic history in the full theme of everything being a vagina reference for See You Next Tuesday. So it's gash, right? It's haha. So Chad redid the art. It is neon MySpace monster madness. The tracks were all redone. Like it's incredible. So that'll be coming up on October 14th. So we've got I'll give you the full fucking October if you promise
Don't have
not
to
to tell me.
whisper.
It's yeah, okay. It's so October 2nd is the first one coming out. It's Great Redneck Hope. So it is their original Cross the Line demo and a live radio performance. And then See You Next Tuesday, and then it's fucking Thumbscrew. And then it's a big 2 LP discography for Thumbscrew end of October.
Ooh.
So no merch this time around. It's just fucking records. So we're gonna get into the meat and potatoes, and then we're going off into November with some more heaters. It's gonna be. I'm just trying to crank it out before the end of the year, like January 25th, like pulling the plug for a couple months. So October's gonna be good. Save your pennies. Yeah.
We're leaving 2020 with some bangers. Wax Vessel.
Bangers.
Nick Velleca, dude. Thank you so much for coming on, dude.
Absolutely, dude. I had a blast. Thank you so much for having me. I've done, very, very few of these. You're like literally. It was so funny when you reached out. You're like, "Hey man, can you be on the pod?" I'm like, "Oh fuck!" Like, okay, like, all right, sounds good. So, dude, I had so much fun. This was a good time. Thank you for having me. Like, let's maybe I'm gonna make a wax cast. I'm gonna have you on that. I'm asking you some questions. We'll flip it around.
Oh, dude, do you know what I would love, and I wish I did with my band? I wish one side of the fucking vinyl was like the music, and then the other side was the interview with the band. Think about it. It'd be a cool idea.
Sick.
That's a cool idea, right?
Okay. You know what? Here's what I will do. I thank you so much for having me. If your band ever wants to do a record, you can. I will coordinate it for you. I will be your point man. We'll make sure it turns out fucking sick.
Let's see 10 years down the line if there's any demand for it, because I wouldn't want I wouldn't want to flop.
No, that's fair. I mean, we'll just do it. We'll do it blind. I'll say 200 copies of some album, and then they buy it, and it turns out it's we'll see what happens.
Oh, a little mystery, dude, John.
It could be a mystery. So, all
right.
Thank you so much. I had a blast. What a dream.
So, thanks for watching, guys. If you made it to the end of this video, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell. You get the alert as soon as the episode's posted. Mm-hmm. Go check out Wax Vessel. It's like every time there's a drop, it's like an event to be the first person to pick up one of his beautiful limited collector's items of these old bands that you used to love back in the MySpace days. So thanks for watching, guys. This is To All the Crowded Rooms.